Welcome. Welcome to the webinar Maximize Your Influence in Business, at Home, and in Society. And together with my good friend Benj Street, we're going to have a great webinar, a great conversation. And so if you watch online, please leave your comments, ask your questions. Most of the tools, most of the outlets will forward your comments, and we will just take it as part of the webinar. Um, and that goes the same for comments, reflections, feedback, if you watch it afterwards or you think back of this webinar. So please connect. And so I'm going to introduce Benj as a good friend, but also someone that I learned um, as as a good friend, but definitely as someone to makes me think differently about innovation, creativity, problem solving, um, and the whole mindset that's so important for my end of the story, the futurizing part. And today we were going to have the webinar, and it's hosted by us as part of the challenge that comes next week, the Accelerate Your Future Challenge. In the same series of today's webinar, we have another one tomorrow and Friday, different topics. Not going to bother you till the end, where I will just put on the agenda for the rest of the week. But today, I really want to talk about maximizing your influence. And from the start in the title, we already mentioned that the influence is both at home, or actually not both, in threefold. It's at home, it's in society, and it's in your business, in occupation, everything you do. And why is it so important that we address all three? Well, I personally believe that we have to try to find out where we can be the same person in all areas of life. And authenticity is connected to the home. And as a leader in society, it all falls back to, did you live it yourself? The same is when you look to your business. It's like how you run your business, how you treat your people, the influence and the impact you have on your staff, your personnel in your organization, or maybe just your team members, is definitely connected to the added value in the marketplace. So that's why these three areas are important, both in alignment and both helping each other to maximize our influence.
I love that you're talking and that we get to talk about this, because I've only known you a couple of years, but I remember from one of the very first times that we met, you said part of your journey was you wanted to be the same person, to be the authentic you. That's my words, but at home, at work, and in society in general. And I think if I look at myself, or around me at other people, people choose to be different people in those different places and not the same version of themselves. Or they choose a lowest common denominator and choose to be a smaller version of themselves in one or in all of those. And for me, what we're talking about today is how can you not just maximize your influence, but be the next version of yourself, be all that you can be in each of those things. So yeah, I'm really excited, and thank you for again inviting me to be part of this journey with you.
Yeah, well, like you said, the next version. And that sounds in a way similar than the language we use about the better version of ourselves, or be the best version of ourselves. Um, and like you said, through that life journey of being the same person whole week long,
Yeah.
is not just driven by the fact that it's a dream. Actually, it is much more resource based. It's like we learn from a very young age that we have that telling the truth will last. Simply because if we're not telling the truth, one day we got lost in all the stories we made up. And the same is actually if we are not the same person in every day of the week,
Yeah.
then that will use so much additional resources, energy, concentration, that actually we could also use it the benefit of maximizing ourselves. And the next version is actually connected to the future. The future is emerging, which means the future is coming our way. And if we try to be the best version, we don't know which to frame on. So we potentially could use our energy in areas of life that soon in time seem less relevant. So actually, it is a waste of our resources if we try to become the best version of ourselves. What we need to know is actually what is our next version? Which version fits the future that I prefer, that I desire, that's coming my way? And then immediately we introduce the word desired future or preferred future. That all depends if you are preparing yourself to create the future and start to anticipate, or that you just let the future happen. Well, if it will happen, that's I can't imagine what a life like that should look like, because it feels a bit like I'm always behind. I'm always like one step behind. And when creating the future, expecting the future, which means that I have to put resources and energy into understanding what's coming. Um, I'm not saying I'm a step ahead, but at least I can be in the moment.
Yeah.
And I could say that I recognize what I expected. And with the disclaimer, it will always look different than I imagined. But I hope you understand a bit, like it looks different than I imagined, but it is what I expected, or more than I expected. And that simply has to do with how our brain functions, because we can only put in boxes what has happened to us.
Yeah.
So I think that is one of the main keys when I talk about maximizing. It's really like you have to free up the resources first. You have to create space in what you do, what you focus on, but also on the roles. Like talking about being the same person a whole week long doesn't mean that I only play one role. No, I play many roles.
Yeah.
Like, don't confuse it. Like, when I'm with my parents, I play the role of being a son. When I'm with my kids, I play the role of being a dad. When I'm facilitating in a boardroom, I play a role as a strategic advisor. If I'm doing a course or a training, I play the role of being a student. But I'm still the same person. They are like facets of me. So I want to see myself as a diamond with many angles, with many facets, so I can play many different roles. But in the core, the authentic self needs to be the same, because that creates that stable foundation to have the resources to increase the impact.
No, it's good. I think for me, there's two clear standouts in that bit. Which one is this making space, and it's key. Whether you look at it from a time perspective, from a financial perspective, or if you look at it like as if you were doing an upgrade to a piece of software, you need to maybe clear out all the trash in your hard drive, and for me, a lot of that links to how to think differently. If we're kind of trying to make a link into the next bit of maximizing your influence, I think a lot of it comes down to how you think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's linked to belief, identity shaped by experience, but doesn't have to be defined by the past. If we link it to the future, it's about sensing who you want to be and then changing the way you think to prepare yourself for how you want to be. And to do that, you do need to make space, because there's probably a load of thinking and stuff in your head as much as anything else that just needs to be let go of, cleared out, moved to one side for a period of time to give you space to think. Our brains are so cluttered and so noisy. There's so many voices going on inside. At least if your brain's anything like mine, it's non-stop, and trying to work out, if you want to really know what your own voice is that is giving you a sense of the future and of what's coming ahead, you need to find a way to make space and turn down some of those other voices and maybe thought patterns and thinking processes that you've built up. And I know when we did the first webinar, we talked, I think for me, the recognition that you need to do that is probably the starting point. And confrontation, sometimes you choose it, sometimes it happens to you, but once it's happened to you a few times, you learn how to turn that external trigger into something positive that can accelerate you, and actually you can then go after some of those triggers in a specific way to help accelerate your mindset shift.
Absolutely. Like, it just brings me back to about 5 years ago. I remember that I spoke with my wife, and we both sensed something new was coming, and we both sensed that the best action would be to create physical space. So we talk about business, occupation. It could easily be busyness. And if we got stuck or hijacked in busyness, then we keep ourselves moving on. And so what I and my wife, both individually and together, had to do is really find out everything we do. Everything was good to do, but what were the right things in all the areas? And we actually had to make harsh decisions and stop doing good and only focus on doing right. And that space that it was created physically, well, of course, it filled up with other things, but it definitely filled up with my inner voice, with new creative thoughts. But I remember, like 5 years ago, when you talked about creating space, everyone around you, mainly the people involved in the good things you were doing, really looked up and thought, like, that's weird. Why would you create space for something that has not arrived yet? And back then I thought, I really knew from the inside out, the only smart thing to do is to create space, which was really not accepted socially. Nowadays, it's much more people talk about it. But when I think back, actually, it's the same like when you expect a child. You're not keep on running till the child is there. You create space for the child before it's born, before it arrives. So it's actually very logical, natural to create physical space before something new arrives. So setting time apart, we could say.
And I think if I talk a little bit about innovation, for me, that's where innovation starts, about in your head. And for me anyway, I know I have creative thoughts all the time, but I'm not always aware of them because I don't have space. So as you starting space, I'm able to hear and focus on those creative thoughts. because often they're drowned out by everything else. But you have to sometimes get creative in creating space.
Absolutely.
And not just creative, but I think courageous and bold. And you really have to take ownership of your own thoughts and your own future mindset that you want to create. So if you want to maximize your influence in your business, in your home, and in society, start with what's going on in your head. Maximize the space for your own voice to create this future mindset in your head. Start to speak it out, and that is probably the hardest and the biggest thing, because I think all the other influence and accelerating and maximizing your influence externally all starts, like you said in your intro, from the inside out.
Yeah, and actually, most of us do this. Like we've just finished 2021, and we all are take a few days. Well, most of us take a few days going a little bit slower between Christmas and New Year, and even if you don't take time off, everything slows down, and not just starting at Christmas, but actually the natural habit is that we reflect. And what comes out of that space for reflection is that we think of all kinds of fixes. And I would say that that's a bit like critical thinking heavy, because we want to fix things, we want to add what's missing. Another step, a next step could be that it's not only that we reflect on the last year, but we also try to have a foresight, a look ahead of what we expect to be the end of 2022. And if we start thinking of what needs to happen, what needs to be created, developed, skills, uh, what space needs to be created based on where we want to be at the end of the next year, then we start to apply creative thinking. And that's a very logical thing we do around a change of a year. Not saying it's fixed to it, but it's a thing that's common. It's well accepted. But what you most of the times hear about is this New Year's resolutions or goal setting. And I would say, like Benj, what you say with the mindset and being creative and creating space and being courageous and being bold, that is also needed. That you can define your objective behind the goals before you start setting the goals, because else you fall back in the better version instead of the next version.
Yeah.
So tell a little bit more about these different types of thinking.
Well, I think I know a little bit about it. It's a journey of learning, isn't it? Because I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I've learnt that you can learn to think differently and practice thinking differently. And I read something a little while back about some of the most successful creatives around all made it a discipline and a practice to think differently. And there's lots of kind of techniques and things that you can go and tools available to train yourself to think differently. But for me, a lot of it just starts with questioning and asking open-ended learning questions. If you want to think differently, you need to start learning and never stop learning. Curiosity, with the humility to actually hear the answers because I think sometimes there can be questions for question's sake, or playing devil's advocate to get a reaction, whether it's in your own head or with other people. But if there's a genuine, you want to learn, you'll find that your thinking does change. I think some of the other techniques that I absolutely love is just getting a different perspective, whether that's getting out in nature, or for me, I love to go flying and look down on the world and see a big picture, kind of metaphorical, but I think when it comes to your thinking, you can do that as well. Ask what if questions. What if there weren't absolutely no limits? What if anything was possible? Um, just let your almost childlike imagination run wild. Make it a game, and just keep doing it again and again and again, like a little kid playing a game, who wants to just stay on the roundabout for get more and more and more. And I think as you repeat those different things, the consistency and the habits of the small changes in your thinking, they're the things that make the big impact to how you think and how you think differently, because it becomes natural. um when you first kind of start trying, and I know when I first started off on this, it feels artificial and it can feel forced, like many things when you're first learning on them. But the more you do it, the more you master it. um and I think something we were talking about earlier today, I consider myself very privileged, because when I was at school, the school was very much focused on not teaching us information, but giving us the tools to learn how to learn and how to learn well. And I know that that set of skills has enabled my thinking, and to be consistently different all the way through my life so far. um
Well, I think that it's actually, unfortunately, quite rare that you learn to learn, because in most cases we just, well, receive knowledge,
yeah
or that's the aim, and we so. But learning to learn and learning to think is definitely part of the journey. Like you mentioned, devil's advocate, and I remember I felt forced in to ask a critical question. Not that I disagreed, but everyone else was just saying, "Yeah, ooh, wow," and I thought there needs to be someone who challenges it,
yeah
and not because it could be wrong, but simply we need to challenge it because probably it's incomplete. So, but actually, I've learned that you have to be your own devil's advocate. So when something happens, you perceive it, you 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 have an emotion with it, you have judgment with it, an opinion. Like all those things are part of it, and we could, of course, we could challenge if our opinion is right, which is definitely something we need to do, which is the devil's advocate kind of thing. But we can go a step further and challenge if the lens which we look through, can we change that one to another lens,
yeah
or a mental tunnel. Like, can I just force myself to think in a different tunnel?
yeah
And or we talk about think outside of the box. Well, I always have to laugh when I hear think outside of the box, because most people simply only talk about the content, but forget that they then really have to think outside the box. I challenge you to think without a box,
yeah
because else you change your box for another box. So you have to really force yourself to think without the box, which is possible, but it's a quite a conscious decision.
yeah
And I don't know how that goes with you, Bench, but maybe we can talk about that one. I feel that I have this conscious trigger every time to force myself to see it from a different angle, to see it with a different lens.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same. So I think there's some different lenses that are easy, or that are easier to remember to do. So can you see it, if there's other people involved, can you see it from a different person's perspective? Is a different, a different lens through the eyes of somebody else. I think, to your point, are you missing something? I think that really helps with that. A different angle on it, a different viewpoint. I think the think without a box is brilliant. If you uh, if you have a mindset where anything is possible, and you look at people who've done amazing things and had huge influence at home, in business, in society in the past, and a lot of them have this mindset, this infinite mindset, or a future infinite mindset, really, of what could it look like, not just tomorrow, but what could it look like in 50 years, or in 100 years time, or in 10 generations, be way beyond what you would normally plan for. And if you can train your mindset to think about what you're thinking of way into the future, it completely gets rid of all the boxes. Because whether it's the box of time, or the box of constraint of finances, or resources, or possibility, if you can think your way into the future, all of those can be imagined away. And then once you have that viewpoint, you can then work backwards to where you are today and work out what you need to do. And I think you can apply that process and technique to getting the mindset that you want. So if you know that you don't have that ability to think in that way, think differently, or have that future, infinite, long-term mindset, how could you start imagining that you've got it already? Dream about it. And then once you have some vague sense, because I'm sure we're all the same in some ways, we're all different and unique, but we all have such similar things in our ability to create and imagine. Once we discover that that's there, and you start to practice unlocking that creativity and innovation that's inside you, you start to you see different. Um, it's like planting seeds in a garden. The seeds are probably there already, or you've been planting them over a period of time, and once you see one seed popping up, you know that there's going to be others coming, and it gives you hope and keeps you going.
Yeah, and one of the mechanisms is to just rethink things backwards, upside down, inside out.
Yeah.
Like you said, like imagine how it will look in 50 years. Well,
Yeah.
imagine how this great breakthrough will look 50 years back in time. Like they're just all tricks to actually force your brain to do what's unique of a human, is that it can have a lateral thought across all your domains, across all your boxes, and just make you think of something ridiculous. And and if you think of something ridiculous, I would suggest chase it, because that's probably the starting point for your breakthrough idea. What we have learned is actually to stop those thoughts and go back to where we were focusing on, because it's a rabbit trail, it's a distraction. But actually, I would say just chase after it and just imagine how it looks like, and let all those thoughts of tangible things, of colors and shapes that come to mind, create a mental picture. because before you know it, you become in a really in a creative space where you could just catch something that you will normally not catch, and you just bring it back, and you could just start processing it.
I mean, I think this is probably a good time to mention your workshop that you're doing about Lego serious play, creative play, because I think there are tools and techniques that, we've been so conditioned by our broader education system, the workplace, and society in general to think, on a conveyor belt, inside a defined set of boxes that actually, for lots of us, completely include myself, to take that step to get completely away from those well trodden lines of thought in your brain is really difficult. And I think what you and others have developed with the Lego Serious Play thing, and how you facilitate it and things, it's an incredibly powerful tool. So if you're listening to this webinar, and you want to take that first step to kind of thinking differently, kindling your creativity, doing it in a fun, different way, then is it tomorrow or the day after that you're doing the Lego?
It's the day
On
after.
Friday.
Yeah, Friday, same time as this webinar. It's a 1 hour training slash experience where we use this boardroom technique of with Lego for creative thinking, and Lego is the construction stuff, because that makes it tangible what we think,
Yeah.
and we all know the power of 3D modeling and prototypes. But what if we use it for creative thinking to really disrupt our normal threats, and just go like come from left field and just discover something new and then
I think I
chase
think
it.
I think there's two key things that I've picked up from what I've learned from you about the Lego. One is that hand brain connection, that you do stuff almost without thinking, without critical conscious thinking, that engages your creative brain just directly through your hands. And I think that's one of the really powerful things of it. And then the second bit that I've seen is so powerful is the follow on. So you've built something, you've created something, and then you speak it out and you interpret it for yourself, and that is delivers all the gold, because
Yeah,
something, it
that's
could
the
just be
magic.
a random pile of shapes, but
Yeah,
actually,
that's the magic.
yeah, it's the magic, isn't it?
Yeah, you've given away the whole session of Friday. Now, the one of
Yeah,
the
but I've not, because
I know, I'm teasing you.
people never do it. The power of what the workshop is, you get to actually do this live with a bunch of people, see how it's done, learn from the
Yeah.
masters. So I
Well,
know you're
that
teasing,
is
but
that is, I think, one of the key things that I really want to add to everything you said, like the thinking, the challenging yourself to be courageous. It sounds like it's something you have to do yourself, and I think it is, but you cannot do it outside of the relationship with
yeah,
other people.
yeah,
You can't do it without verbalizing what you think. It's like we tend to say some people are uh, verbal processors, and I want to just wake everyone up. So are you,
yeah,
because it literally only works when you verbalize what you think, because then it sounds strange, amazing, a breakthrough. It is different when you hear what you think. And with the 3D modeling, you see, think, and hear what is it about. And that's the strong thing, where we can actually activate a part of our brain that has no language yet, which is probably the biggest part of your brain. You can access it. And by the verbalizing what you think and what you see, You develop the language that was missing, and that's where the next step come from. So I definitely invite everyone to follow this boardroom experience about using 3D modeling, and in this case Lego, for creative thinking. And in general, like, you need to find your peers.
Yeah.
That's
I was going to say, sorry, I'm going to jump in because I think everything that we've been talking about till now, if you think from a physics perspective of motion, inertia or the resistance to movement, going from stationary, from zero to a little tiny bit of movement, is always the biggest hurdle. And I think everything that we've spoken about till now is all about how do you get that first movement, whatever it is, you know, whichever area of your mind you're working on, or your mindset or your life, you know, whether you're wanting to see change, transformation in business, at home, and society, that first step is always the hardest.
yeah.
But acceleration needs that to happen, and acceleration then starts from that point onwards, and you know, almost you need to decide to do that. But as soon as you started moving, you need people to go on the journey with you, because
Absolutely.
whether, you know, you're some superhero and you keep going for 6 months, or you're an ordinary person like me and you last about 6 hours before, you know, you get tired or bored or discouraged or something, you need people around you, one, to go, come on, you know, we're all on this journey, let's keep going. Two, to go, to call you out on the stuff that you're saying which is not you, because sometimes you need an external sounding board to, when you are vocalizing this stuff that you're just seeing and imagining, to go, actually doesn't sound like you. It sounds like who you used to be, not who
Yeah,
you want to be. And
yeah.
you know, it's peers.
It's
It's
peers.
people on the journey with you. So for me, and I haven't used this metaphor on this in this webinar, but I've used it before in other ones. You know, innovation and that creativity helps you to build a vehicle, and you get to choose who you want in that vehicle with you for that journey, the peers that you want to challenge you and go far with.
That's what I'm going to talk about tomorrow.
Okay.
About how do I realign my business or busyness to my future perspective. And talking about vehicle, I mean, when you said that, like, getting into motion is the first hurdle, the first obstacle. And for those who have switched from an old diesel car to an electric car, know that you have to relearn how to drive, because when you put as much on your right foot pressure in an electric car, then you find out how much energy was needed to get a traditional car moving. Like, it looks like you want to race. Like, it's ridiculous. You really have to, also for the battery life, you really have to relearn that you have to really be soft to the pedals. And I think that's so important. And if your car is really heavy, then you know that sometimes it helps if some people just help you and push the vehicle. Maybe I go to old age cars, like, but it
Flintstone.
is with the peers, like traveling. You know what is the fun thing about traveling? Is the new people you meet,
Yeah.
is the other people, it's the experience you have together.
Yeah.
It makes the trip nice. It makes the trip interesting. It helps you to verbalize what you experience. You know, you hear that from people who love to travel alone. They still miss the fact that they can't share the story. And talking to yourself on your phone with live videos, it helps. It's much better than just in your head. But having the direct interaction and the feedback, the encouragement, in a place of safety, like, we can throw in every hot topic in the business world right now. It's all a condition for us to get moving. And creative thinking, like it comes from the inside out, but with the reflection from the outside world, that needs to be safe, that needs to be on the same level. So we call that peers. um, you could compare it a bit to siblings. That's not always safe, but you know that siblings will definitely tell you the truth about how it's interpreted what you say, and you need that. Not not to get real, but really like find out what's more. Find out what's more in your imagination, in your brain, in your sensing the future.
Yeah, what else could there be? Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Which brings me actually to the last bullet. We had three, but we already mentioned three. We had three. So the first one was really like uh, get to a level of growth, maturity, where you see alignment between your busyness, your home, and society, the roles you play, because it frees up resources. Second one is like really rethink your thinking, and I would add to that one, relearn your learning all the time. It's Einstein who says that you need a different level of thinking to solve the problem than it's created. But he is also the one who gave the definition for insanity by saying, keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. Well, we expect different results, so we need to adjust how we do things.
Yeah,
So that was number two. And number three is definitely do it in the context of peers for the safety, the encouragement, the push back, and the push forward. And in that same context, I think the last one for today is really learn how to recognize your emerging future.
yeah,
Our human brain needs to process, and then I talk about our IQ, needs to process um, rational thoughts and versus emotions. And the moment we are facing something we didn't expect, we get this emotion of surprise. And then we speak it out, we think this is really way too much. And then we dial it down immediately. Well, dialing it down is actually shame. And shame is not going to help you to be creative because it's the emotion with the least energy. Well, being courageous as the most energy. So, to make sure that we protect ourselves for being surprised, we can use our thinking, our creative thinking, to actually get to the opposite emotion, which is anticipation. Because when we anticipate on what we sense that is coming, then we will recognize it when it happens. And I said already in this webinar, it will look much better than you imagined and different. That's not a problem. Just remember, every time we try to process it and bring it back to words, but every time we find out that our words are not sufficient, so we find new words, and by that we move on slowly forward. Um, but that's not the excuse for not preparing ourselves to anticipate on a preferred future, so that when it happens, we recognize it instead of miss it. And that's one of the things that I made a bit, not my life mission, but I simply love doing it, is sharing this unique process of futurizing. So it's not the process for the happy 1% of people. No, it's actually a process that's accessible for everyone. And I believe that it's a skill that you can develop by doing it over and over again. I would say on a 6 to 12 month basis, that you force yourself by setting time apart, creating space to actually step by step just create, draft a mental image of what your preferred future should look like, because then you can backcast instead of forecast. So then you can backcast what needs to be done. like what needs to be learned, what goals needs to be set, what people need to be attracted, what people you want to travel with to that future, like all those backcasting questions that really, I heard it today and I borrow it. I heard it from uh, Jim Quick, and he said that we know the saying knowledge is power, and he adds to that learning, then learning is a superpower. So to learn and focus our learning, so much helps if you have an expected outcome, a preferred future that will get you and keep you on track. Like your New Year's resolutions, based on fixing, you will lose attention. Whatever happens, it will just vaporize somewhere in the upcoming weeks, months. But when it's part of your focus, then you know it is just learning. It's part of your walk, part of your journey. So, actually, I want to invite everyone listening to this webinar, live and in the on demand, to just make use of that challenge next week, where I give at no cost access to this process and will get you through an experience so that you will feel the added value of this skill.
Well, I wanted to add. So I've done the process several times with you now over the last 2 years, and I can say it accelerates. It is a week challenge of acceleration for a couple of reasons. One, you're creating, if you come on the challenge, you need to create space. It's going to take you that hour a day of seminar, but it's going to occupy your thoughts for the whole day. But that, what do you call it, boiler room environment accelerates you. And I think the second thing is the people that you meet on the challenge as well, who are on the same journey from completely different parts of the world, walks of life. People who I've met on the last 3 challenges are peers and people who I now call friends. So I can only say thank you for all the ones you've run in the past and for running this one. I'm super excited. And to anybody listening to this webinar, if you've not been one on before, just sign up, jump in both feet. It is a blast and it will accelerate your mindset shift towards your dreams, your goals, to maximizing your influence. And to anybody who's been on one before, don't think I've done it and I know it. You have to keep doing it. So jump into. Can't say anything else.
Well, I think that's a great testimony of the added value, and it's absolutely true. Let's keep repeating it, and it's not like you said in the week. It's continuously on top of your mind, and but it's the same with strategy and futurizing. Those things are normally not top of our mind.
No.
And we treat it as annual, or once in 3 years we think about it, and then we find out that we don't have the skills, so we end up with a vision which is mainly a forecast based on what we already have or didn't work out yet.
Yeah.
But it's the same with strategy. It needs to be top of mind. It's not that it occupies you, but it needs to be top of mind. Not hourly, like all operational stuff, but definitely based weekly or monthly. Think about it. Like, keep the focus clear. Know where the learning arch goes through.
Yeah.
And that will just help you. So, to summarize it, I think the key element is living from the inside out if you want to maximize your influence. Learning to listen to your own heart, your own spirit, your own thoughts. Take yourself serious. Be courageous about weird thoughts. just chase them. Maybe it sounds wrong to say take yourself serious, because then we say and not too serious. Now I think you have to take yourself really serious, because there is something really unique under the surface in every individual. And we'd love to say we need to change the world. And I hate it when people say we have to adapt to the ever changing world. No, we need more people that change the world by adjusting their focus. And it needs to come from the inside out. Everyone carries something unique the world is waiting for.
Yeah, the world needs it. The world, there's plenty of famous quotes about the world waiting for you to be you. Um,
So
yeah,
let us help you to be you, because your part of society, your home, your business waits for it, deserves it. And so do you. You deserve the platform. It will do you good.
yeah.
So, Benj, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We tried to make this webinar shorter than the last one. So maybe that works. The last one was 55 minutes. We're now 52 minutes in. Um, but I want to thank you for everyone listen. Like invited at the beginning, leave your comments, give us feedback, and take the invitation to run with us and find out if we are those peers you have been looking for that can help you to accelerate and maximize your influence in business, at home, or in society, and even better in all three. So, thank you for your time. Thank you for watching to the end. And I have the upcoming um, let me see, the upcoming events. I think that's the best way to say it. And the upcoming events are tomorrow, same time as today, realign your business to your future perspective. So this is where we're going to talk about your business being a vehicle and who you want in your vehicle to help you to move to that future perspective. Friday, how to use Lego for creative thinking. And then the whole challenge starting on Monday, where we're going to talk about um, the steps of the futurizing process and the experience, and with assignments, so that you will also have the experience what it means that you get your feedback from your peers that receive your input actually as an inspiration, which inspires them to give you the feedback that you have been longing for. So just take that journey, make some time for it. I hope through time zones and busyness, you can be in the live sessions. There is a VIP ticket based on pay it forward. I pay your ticket. And if you really value the challenge, I hope you will pay the ticket for someone else. If not, that's just up to you. All the pressure on your end. But I really want to have you in the live sessions as well, so that you have live Q&A about the content, about the reflection, etc. That makes the challenge most efficient and valuable for both you and for me. So having said that, I hope to see you tomorrow.
Sorry, quick question, Arjan. If people do want to sign up to the VIP, do they need to go to thefuturechallenge.com?
Yes, if you sign up for the challenge to get also access to the replays, is thefuturechallenge.com. Then you get the email with the information that you need to access the challenge.
And so
And
the
also,
VIP access is on Zoom, is it?
and the VIP access, you can claim your ticket through a link in the confirmation email.
But you'll be streaming on YouTube and Facebook as well if
I'll
people
be
want to
streaming
do
on
that.
Facebook, so it's
Okay,
in the closed Facebook group, and for those who want to join live in the Zoom session.
perfect.
And
Thank you.
it's behind the wall that you can get access to, and that all has to do with safety for you to be in this peer environment and not just out there in the open. So having said that, I wish you all a very good the rest of the day, evening, or morning, and speak to you soon. Bye.